Okay, this is the City Council special meeting of February 18th, 2020. It's 5:30 p.m. And would you please call order?
Mayor Karen Moran.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Christy Malchow.
Present.
Councilmember Ken Gamblin.
Present.
Councilmember Jason Ritchie.
Here.
Councilmember Chris Ross.
Present.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Okay.
Excellent. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Gamblin, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. Everyone stand, please. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up, we have the approval of the agenda.
I move we move the agenda.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 7-0. Excellent. Okay, we will now move to executive session for discussions regarding collective bargaining pursuant to RCW 4230.140 4A. That'll be for 1 hour, and we will be back at 6:30. So next up, we have actually got public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council, 3 minutes limit per person or 5 minutes if representing the official position of a recognized community organization. If you would like to show a video or a PowerPoint, it must be submitted or emailed by 5 p.m. the end of the business day to the city clerk, Melanie Anderson, M. Anderson, at sammamish.us. Please be aware council meetings are videotaped and available to the public. I'm awful with names, going to tell you that up front. Todd Myers, followed by Jennifer Coombs and Mary Wichter.
Good evening. So my name is Todd Myers. I'm a resident of Montaigne neighborhood. Montaigne was annexed into Sammamish in 2011, and in 2012, Sammamish was named the friendliest city in the country. So you're welcome. That spirit of friendliness is what I want to talk about today. We just went through a very rough election in Sammamish, and 2020 is going to be a very difficult political year for the country. And I think there's going to be an ugly tone from both the president and probably some from his potential opponents. I want to give you two more examples that are more personal about my dad, who was a Redmond City councilman. When my dad ran for legislature, a group called Fuse accused him of opposing gay marriage. This was news to my sister, who is gay. It was also news to CMAC, the gay rights organization that gave my father a perfect score and endorsed him. Most recently, a city council member accused my father of being anti-Muslim at a public event when he was a city councilman. This was news to the Muslim Association of Puget Sound, where he was a fixture at many meetings, and even helped them find and locate their mosque. And recently, they asked him if he would consider joining the board of their charity. The reason I mention these is that in each of these cases, these accusations were ignorant and mean-spirited, and the goal was to tear others down to build themselves up for political purposes, something I'm sure you all have been on the receiving end of. So my message to you during each of these tense discussions in this tense political year is twofold. First, don't become what you abhor. Each of you has been subject to unfair and ignorant attacks and accusations, and don't do the same to others and add to the corrosiveness of our politics. Second, all of us should reject those who engage in the politics of personal destruction and this kind of name-calling. Just as we ask kids to stand up to bullies, all of us should stand up to those who use these same tactics. I encourage all of you to read the wonderful speech by Arthur Brooks at the National Prayer Breakfast most recently, where he talks about the crisis of contempt in our country, and what we can do to fix it. He encourages us to remember that no one has ever been insulted into agreement, and that you can only persuade with love. I wish you good luck in doing your best to remember in the tough political days ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
one or both? Oh, sweet. Hello. Oh, you guys can hear me. Okay. Hi, my name is Jennifer Coombs, and I've been in here prior a couple of different times on a human services proposal. Last year I was here in November 2019 making a proposal to add or actually add some positions to the human services department. With that proposal, you guys had come out with $150,000 for grant money for mental health counseling for youth, which was a great thing. And so this particular proposal is actually for a public health manager. And if someone can go ahead and flip this slide to the second slide. Or do I do that? Okay, so basically for this, I just want to kind of go over some key points. I would like to have you guys actually read the entire proposal because there's a couple things in there that regard the recent ethical possible issues with the new city manager possibly coming on. And I believe that bringing on a public health manager immediately and having that approved in this meeting or a budget approved for something like this in this meeting would help alleviate a lot of the ethical concerns and the problems that people feel, the feelings that people have about this transition. But what I'd like to focus on in this particular meeting is, or this particular time, is the key points of a public health manager and why I feel that it's needed. I believe this is actually going to fulfill a needs-based gap that we don't currently have fulfilled in this city, in the sense that we need to prepare for not only the nutrition side, the poverty side, and the emergency issues that are surrounding public health. The coronavirus is just one example, but in my practice as a clinical nutritionist, I'm seeing tons of issues with depression, anxiety, all different types of issues as a nutritionist, fulfilling those needs where mental health counseling is simply not going to fulfill all those needs. And this also needs to go on a bigger scale. It needs to be masses, the city. It needs to be general health. It needs to be general public and in the school system and in relationship to the medical community where I can only reach so many people. So I'm really proposing this as a bigger position through the city with a budget approved for a 6-month position. And a part-time position because we are a relatively small city. And I believe that we can pull this budget from our general funding to be able to do something like this. And I simply believe that we need to expand on what I proposed last year, not just with mental health counseling, but to actually bring a position into the city that is related to not only just the city manager, the emergency health department, the city council, the city management, to really get into the city with public health awareness. And I believe that there's a number of issues that we can address here and partner up with so many people to get this done. And thank you for listening, and hopefully you guys can get this approved tonight. Thank you.
Last on my list is Mary Wichter.
Good evening. My name's Mary Wichter, and I live at 408 208th Avenue Northeast in Sammamish. I did email this into you about 5 o'clock today, so I thought I'd give you a hard copy. For when you're considering the 2020 work plan tonight, there are some things that aren't necessarily listed on, but maybe they could be integrated into some of the things that you have going on for the year because they're very important. I know in January, Council had raised their concerns about Zaccoose Creek, the vast amount of water, sediment, and rushing water that comes. A lot of that comes from the Tamarack area, and there are ways to control that. The Zaccoose Basin Study was adopted. There's multiple CIPs in there that would address it and would also help public safety, environment, as well as the fish, and I think those should be considered. Staff was actually delayed last fall in getting back to look at one of the things, but I think if you consider one of those projects, put it on a CIP list or put it in the budget, then grant money can be looked for it because I think it's very important to do much sooner than later. I've also brought up a number of times there are about 3,500 septic systems in the city, And while the phosphorus in our sensitive lakes has stayed fairly constant from the stormwater people I learned, the fecal coliform is going up. Fecal comes from feces. Between cooperation between the city, the water districts, and King County Department of Health, we could start addressing these things, and regulations need to be known and they need to be updated to ensure that there are not public health risks. Certainly, at least education about septics would help. The city stormwater staff also needs to be able to look into complaints, because if a problem with a septic is reported, it has to go through stormwater first. They have to do some analysis and then can ask King County Department of Health to trace it. But if they can't do that or don't have budget or funding or staff, pretty much those problems just have to sit, which really doesn't seem right. Sammamish Plateau Water and Northeast Sammamish Sewer and Water District have also requested some well protection and aquifer protection. They put that in under the stormwater code that was considered twice. It was told it was slightly out of scope, so it was promised that they would do it last year or this year. I don't see that anywhere in. They are not large changes. They're small code changes, but they're very important changes, because you pretty much can't afford to clean up polluted water after it's polluted, but you can do things now to protect it. And there is pollution in the city of Issaquah, and they dilute water that goes to Klahani. So it's really close to your doors. We want to do all the city. There are also some minor code changes. You've seen me a lot over the last 5 years, even if you don't want to. And there are some gaps and loopholes, and those hurt areas that are critical areas that have existing lots. And there are some small changes that could be done to at least address those before you do any big changes like the Phase 2 development regulations. But since they're small things, they're never going to float to the top. They need to be integrated in, and they need to be implemented. One of those is related to steep slopes, properly identifying them. We got that legend on the map through a whole comp plan change, and that really needs to be dealt with. So I hope that you'll consider these, and if I've gone too fast here, you have the paper to follow up on. Thank you.
You must practice that at home. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to address the council? Excellent. Okay, next up is our consent calendar.
So moved.
Okay, I have a first. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I'd actually like to remove items 3 and 5. There's just a minor correction to the list of committees in the minutes from the February 11th meeting.
Okay, so in moving 3 and 5, I'm going to move them to unfinished, so I'm going to put them as a new number 10.
Awesome.
Anybody else have any other changes? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda as changed, say aye.
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 Opposed? 7-0 for the record. Okay, first thing that we have is a Girl Scout troop presentation.
As they're coming in, I'll go ahead and introduce the agenda item. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and acting city manager. My name is Angie Fesser. I'm the Parks Recreation Facilities Director. And with me tonight, assisting on the mic over there, is Chris Jordan, our recreation manager. We're here tonight to introduce a proposed Girl Scout public mural project for council's approval. This proposed project was reviewed and recommended by both the Arts and Parks and Recreation Commissions, with the Arts Commission unsoliciting allocated $500 towards the project, which has been actually budgeted for through the Arts Commission already, so no need for council approval on that. Please note that this mural is considered temporary, as it will require some long-term significant maintenance to retain it in pristine condition. However, we are recommending that the artwork is temporary, but that the project is perpetual, and that this troupe return in the future to design and propose and repaint another mural, so we can kind of keep it ongoing. Tonight's presentation will be made by the Girl Scouts and will provide the details of the project. And more than likely, they will be far more interesting to listen to than myself. So with that, I would actually like to turn it over to them at this time.
Hi, my name is Kennedy, and I go to Margaret Mead Elementary.
Hello, my name is Auburn, and I also go to Margaret Mead Elementary.
Hello, my name is Vedhika, and I also go to Margaret Mead Elementary.
Hi, my name is Piper, and I also go to Margaret Mead Elementary.
Hi, my name is Murray, and I also go to Mead Elementary.
Hi, my name is Vanchika, and I also go to Margaret Mead Elementary.
Hi, I'm Zoe, and I go to Mead as well.
Hi, I'm Callie, and I go to Blackwell Elementary. Our Girl Scout troop made of 11 fifth-grade girls from Mead and Blackwell Elementary proposed to paint a mural at the Upper Sammamish Commons play structure in an effort to complete our Bronze Award. They are excited to be able to bring a bit more color and life into the world as well. The proposed project is to be painted along the wall behind the play structure across from the library, running parallel to the 228th Avenue South. Okay.
We have already been granted permission by the Arts Commission and the Parks Commission.
The design we present is a bunch of different shapes and filled with different colors, with bold white letters saying "You do you." You do you. What it means to me is do what you think is right. Do be yourself. Don't do what other people think that you should do to fit in. Be your own puzzle piece. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you girls going to be painting yourself?
Yeah. With chalking from our troop leaders, we will paint it on our own. Anything else?
I have two questions. One, do you need any help painting? And two, can we get a picture with them?
Yeah. So, and I have a question. So, what made you think of this project? And then the second thing is this one of the projects that you do that you get to earn some sort of credit toward a badge or something that you get to report then back to? I used to be a Girl Scout, so years ago, but that you get to report then back to the Girl Scout Association for some reason or another. I mean, what made you think of it, and for what purpose does it serve?
So the purpose is for us to fulfill our Bronze Award, which is something that Girl Scouts can get in 4th or 5th grade, which is a project that the whole troop does that can be sustained after the troop leaves. And as we were thinking of things to do for our Bronze Award, somebody suggested a mural, and it kind of spiraled from there.
Excellent. I think it's a very good idea.
Thanks.
Well, I would love it if you guys would like to do a picture with the council.
Hey, Karen. Sorry, Karen, I have a comment.
Oh, okay, hang on, because I didn't see that. Hold on. We've got, up in the cloud up here, we've actually got Christy. Okay, so we've got Deputy Mayor who's got a question for you.
Thanks. It's actually less of a question and more of a comment. I really appreciate the fact that you guys came up with this great idea. It's a very blank gray wall, and I know our Girl Scout troops have done some wonderful projects, including the bat and bird houses that are at Big Rock Park. So I really appreciate you guys wanting to give something back to the community, and this is a wonderful gift. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So maybe while we're doing a picture, Lita, apparently Jason somehow got kicked offline.
Karen, while you guys are doing the pictures, I'll get them back on.
Excellent, thank you. Well, thank you, girls. I'm very excited to see that.
I've never seen anybody pass through 2 commissions, not just one. So congratulations, nice job.
Okay, so the next thing that we have on,
So, Madam Mayor, do we need to make a approval of this, a motion or anything, or is this something that's a done deal? And
I'm looking through, I don't have any,
There's an action item on there, so I'll move it.
it's all funded
I
by
think it's
then?
all done.
Sweet. Thank you.
Okay, next up is our city council rules of procedure.
Karen, sorry, quick question. I made a motion on that last thing. I thought it said that it's seeking approval from council on the proposal. Do we need a motion or we do not?
Oh,
Just
was
action.
my belief
It
that
is
we
from
did
council.
not. Angie said it was all taken care of already.
Okay. I misread it then. It said it needed action. So thank you.
Do we have Jason? Are you back with us?
He is.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Sugg.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, Mr. Acting City Manager. My name is Mike Sugg. I'm your Senior Management Analyst. And this agenda item is a continuation of your discussion from last week on the Council Rules of Procedure. We got through the bulk of the changes last week, but we still need to resolve a few items that remain. In your packet tonight is an updated matrix showing only the items that we still need to decide on. And if the council is comfortable at the end of this discussion, you can approve the resolution in your packet, which would thereby approve the updated rules. So with that, I guess we can just go through this kind of similarly to how we went through it last week. And at the end, we can adopt the resolution if council's comfortable.
Okay, first I have actually got a question. Councilmember Stewart?
So, Mike, you said we go through them one by one like we did last time?
The process is up to the mayor, but that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, so my question on this first one, since you guys kind of recommend that we not adopt this new rule, could we kind of find something in the middle, which would just be that the city manager would let the entire council know if they were undertaking any work that came in as a request from less than a majority of council? And so it's just more of an information, right? So that way we're just all aware.
Yeah, well, anybody else have any comments? So let's go to Councilmember Treen.
Yeah, so this rule to me is like a no. It doesn't exist, and it doesn't need to exist because all requests should go through the city manager, and he or she or they should determine if the request is reasonable. So we don't direct staff.
Correct.
So there's no need to even have this rule.
Right, well, I guess.
Councilmember Ross?
But we do direct the city manager for our work statement, and if the city manager determines that it's a heavy lift, he should give us feedback, and we should rationalize whether or not we want to pursue it further, and the majority of 4 would make that decision.
Did you have another comment? Okay. Okay, Councilmember Stewart, followed by Councilmember Treen.
So just to remind folks, I think the reason this came up was not so much for the sort of approval of adding something to the work plan, but more, and I think it was Deputy Mayor who kind of explained it before, which is you may have a question and you may want to get information But in asking that question and seeking information, it may be a significant amount of work for staff to go get that information. So that would be a single council member asking a question that results in a significant amount of staff time being allocated to something. That's where I believe that this proposal came from. So since there was a lot of discussion about what that means and do we need to have it, I was thinking that a compromise would be that the city manager would keep the entire council abreast if a question is asked so that we all are aware, and that way we all also get all of the information. So it's not so much about needing to seek approval, because I think to Councilmember Ross's point, there should be nothing added to the work plan that doesn't come to council and get a majority. I think it was more on those sort of one-off questions that didn't feel like a work plan item when you asked it, but turned into something bigger, and we just want to all be aware when that's happening.
Okay, just a reminder, we're on round 2. Councilmember Treen, followed by Councilmember Ross, and then Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so requiring a vote of 4 will just put the staff, I see it as just putting staff into a bind and then bogging down the council too. I mean, if we have a lot of work to get done, so if a request is made and then it's being brought back to us to see if it's something that we need to be doing, then we're just getting into a cycle where our city manager is going to make the decision with staff. So I don't, if I make a request to the city manager for wireless, let's just say, and it's going to take some time, then he's going to tell me, okay, we can't do that right now. That's scheduled for June, or that's on our work plan, but this is when we're going to see it. So I'm not going to get my answer right away. So and if it's something that's going to come up in the council meeting, then if they're not ready to answer those questions at the time, then we move to continue that item and move it further down the calendar. That's what a city manager does. He manages the city. He helps us manage the time up here. That's what we're hiring him for. So if he's not doing his job, why would we? I'm not going to direct the staff on what their work is. I can ask all the questions I want. The manager can tell me, no, we can't do that. Or yes, we can. If it's a 15-minute answer on a question, done. If it's going to take 5 hours or 40 hours, that's significant. He's going to tell me so, and he's going to tell us, hey, you're not going to get that, or you're going to see it in a presentation, or it's coming up in the next agenda item. This is a no.
Councilmember Ross, followed by Deputy Mayor.
Okay. This is very nuanced, and we got to be careful we're not painting ourselves in the corner. Let me start with the overarching concept that we have to think about in deliberating on this. This is the city council meeting. The city council sets the agenda on behalf of the people of Sammamish. If we leave any loopholes in this policy that does not give us the right now it's 3 council members put something on the agenda. If we lose that ability, then we've lost the ability to set the agenda. So this option, I think it plays into the three person rule of putting something on agenda. So they got to play together. But I don't want to lose the ability with at least 3 people putting something on the agenda. If we make it 4, we're actually even making it more a majority, which would have to take a one-on-one vote. I'm not sure we can do that with the OPMA, so I think it's back to the 3 council members. So maybe we revert back to 3 people putting something on the agenda. So if I ask for something, or if any of my colleagues ask for something, work statement, the city manager says it's too much a heavy lift, then we poll the council until you get 3. The city manager likely would poll the council, say who, and I don't know, help me out, councilor, if I'm getting fraying the OPMA, but we really need to have the opportunity to set our agenda. So it's.
Are we still in section 2.5?
Yes, yes, but 2.5, but the point being on 2.5 is if we want some data or some information or to discuss something, and it's too heavy of a lift, we would like to have the opportunity to address it at a council meeting with the requisite support. Now, to Councilmember Treen's point, if the feedback to me individually of my request is that's a heavy lift, I don't want to pursue it further, I might not want to pursue it further because I'm also interested in the spirit of efficiency. But I don't want to put that decision away from the council's ability to set the agenda.
Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Ritchie.
Okay, first, Councilmember Ross, now I'm tracking where you were going with the 4 council members. I just thought maybe I missed something, sorry. So relative to this, I agree with Councilmember Treen's first time he spoke. There's really not a need for this, but I also agree with Councilmember Stewart, but not so much in the fact that this needs to be a council rule, but that's something that the city manager should be abiding by, is to keep us all informed about what's going on, including things like one-on-one meetings that are of interest to the body as a whole. But these are council rules, not city manager rules. And so I think the option that staff has here in red and recommends not implementing is sufficient, because any time later on in these rules we're going to adopt, it says if you correspond with anyone, you have to include the city manager. And so if you're emailing and asking a question or giving directions to staff on work, even if it's in the form of a question, the city manager can jump in there right there on email and say, sorry, this is too much. And it's his authority to do that. So I don't think it's a necessary add.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yeah, I agree with, make it short and sweet, I agree with everything Deputy Mayor Malchow just said. So, and Councilmember Treen, and yeah, I'm in alignment that we should follow staff recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, that includes both rounds except for me. And my comment here is that I don't think this, as far as the agenda, I don't think this relates to the agenda item. I think that's covered in 4.1.3. So I don't think 2.5, I don't think we should be directing staff work. That's my opinion. I do believe that it should be part of the rules of the city manager to tell us if he's been approached by somebody and they've got something they want to have looked into and it's, it's going to be a lot of work or whatever. I think that's more of the city manager's job, but it is not for the city council to be directing staff work. That's my opinion. Excuse me. And we have got one other, Councilmember Gamblin.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward. The staff recommendation, I think, is fine. It handles the situation. I don't think we need to take it further than that.
Okay, so we have one more for a second comment, and that is Deputy Mayor, is that correct?
Yes, I wanted to have a quick question about how you want to organize this in terms of, do you want to take each section by section? Because I'm willing to make a motion to not include this if you want to go item by item rather than trying to do it wholesale. Is that your preference?
Let's just go to keep track of them. Okay, yeah, they're nodding their heads. Let's just keep track of them. Okay, next up is 3.2.2, no changes. 3.2.3.
Wait, sorry.
Oh, 3.2.2. It does have change.
Good question. No changes meaning what?
I just said it does, yes. Do you have a question? Anybody have questions on 3.2.2?
I don't know where we've settled on this. When you say no changes, do you mean the current rule would stand, or? there's two options listed, so I'm not clear.
So I'm wondering what your comment is. Do you want option 1? Do you want option 2?
Okay, you were moving on, and you said no changes, so that's what my confusion was. Option 2, please.
Okay. So let's go around the dais and see where everybody's at on that. Let's start. Councilmember Stewart.
Option 1.
Councilmember Treen.
It doesn't matter. 6 or half a dozen. Which way do you want it worded? So I'll take.
Well, it's either we
2.
will have the meeting or we won't, so it does matter. It's not different wording, it's a different.
Yeah, I know. It's half a dozen. Yeah, it doesn't matter either way.
Do you want 2? Okay.
Keep the Monday study session and cancel when unneeded. No, remove the Monday sessions and the schedule special meeting. I'll go 1.
All right.
1 it is.
Okay, Councilmember
matter.
Gamlin.
2.
Okay, Councilmember Ross.
2.
Okay, Councilmember Ritchie.
1.
And I am all for reduced meetings, unless they are needed, in which case we can call them. So I'm a 1. That would be a 4-3, so. Uh, 3.2.3.
I have a comment.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Under the option, it says for any 4 members. I think that should say 3. I don't know how you get 4 members of a council to agree they need a special meeting on something without it being an OPMA violation.
If I could, Mayor, and perhaps it's inartful wording, but the 4 in that case comes directly out of the Open Public Meetings Act, the special meeting section 42.30.080. So I think it wouldn't be a situation where 4 council members would gather and then, for example, send an email. It would be 1 council member would send an email to the mayor or to the city manager saying, yes, I'd like a special meeting, and a second and a third and a fourth. But and Christie's would normally be right here, but this language is right out of the OPMA. So.
Okay. It could still be reduced to 3 if council wanted to lower that threshold.
Okay, is there anybody else who's got comments on the 3.2.3? Personally, I think the reading should stay how it is out of the. Okay, Councilmember Gamblin.
So I'm just unclear. So is this to be a 2-step notification project where we, number 1, try to notify all the council members that we want to schedule a special meeting, and then with a second notification to actually schedule that meeting? Is that what we're saying? This is a 2 notification system? Is there a reason we couldn't just send out the notification there's a meeting, and then if people couldn't come, they would respond and say, I can't attend that meeting? Why do we need a notification first to ask when we're going to send a notification out anyway? It's a double notification.
Well, probably because you got to make sure you've got at least 4 people.
Right, but you'll find that out when you send the notification, correct? You'll send it out and people will respond, and they either respond, you get the 4, you don't get the 4. You'll know by the responses.
Okay, again, this is taken right out of, isn't this the RCW wording?
Other than the addition in red there, the rest of it is. The addition in council rules is the provision that allows the deputy mayor to call a special meeting. That is not in the RCW, but it does not conflict with the RCW, so that would be appropriate if you want to keep that in.
Okay, so Councilmember Gamblin, do you have anything more to? Nope. Okay, then we've got Councilmember Stewart, followed by Councilmember Ross.
So the first notification isn't just telling people there's a meeting. So what happened the first year and a half or so on council, when we had the need to have a special meeting called out of sequence, was that a mail was sent out generally by the city manager or someone from staff to try to find a time when most people, if not all, could attend. So it's not just a notification that there's a special meeting and it's already been decided. It's, hey, we need to have a special meeting. Here are 3 options, for example, of times, which one works best for the most people, so that we try. I mean, if there's truly an emergency, we'd really like to get all 7 people here. And so let's make every effort to find a time when everyone can attend. That's the intention here. It isn't just to send out a notification and then send another notification. And I guess I'd like to understand more about why, if the RCW is allowing the mayor to call a special meeting, I'm fine with that. Why do we need to have other people be able to schedule a special meeting? Like the deputy mayor or 4 council members, I kind of feel like it. So is it the mayor or 4 council members is what the RCW says?
The RCW says it may be called at any time by the presiding officer of the governing body or by a majority of the members of the governing body.
So I'm not sure why we would add the deputy mayor to, I'd say we go with the RCW.
Yeah, because the deputy mayor would be the presiding officer if the mayor is out of town.
That's right. So it should just be the mayor, I think. So
Councilmember Ross?
So, a question on execution of the option proposed. We would send an email to every council member noticing our support of a special meeting.
no, asking when they could attend one. Like, does this date and time work for you?
May be called. Okay. It's just logistically, I guess it's RCW, and RCW is not very clear then. Which gets back to Councilmember Stewart's point. What are we trying to accomplish here?
Just a minute. Okay, we're going to go into round 2 here. So, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so in response to Councilmember Stewart's issue with the deputy mayor language being in there, and to the mayor's point, which is if the mayor's not there, the deputy is the presiding officer, why don't we just use the language presiding officer instead of mayor or deputy mayor?
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. You're correct. Councilmember Stewart?
So just to bring it back around, I think what we're proposing here is to change the language that says that it may be called by the presiding officer or a majority, right? To just actually use the language from the RCW.
Yep.
Is the change that we're
Yep, to just-
requesting to make
yep,
there.
Exactly.
And otherwise, it stays the same. Yes, I think that's
Yes.
what we're.
Well, Mayor,
Okay.
if that is the council's intent, then you could just stop after the first paragraph, or I'm sorry, the first sentence.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's strike everything. So we have the first sentence and the sentence in red. And that would be it.
Yeah, and every effort made is just, I mean, you can try to reach everybody the best we can. I mean, it just isn't easy during the summertime or whatever, but every effort will be made.
I have one quick question, Karen, if I may.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Mike, this is a question for you, and this is relative to the term presiding officer and playing devil's advocate here. At what point would we say, or how do we define who the presiding officer is? It's always the mayor, right? So if for some reason Mayor Moran is in Belize on a beach somewhere and we can't reach her,
then
is
it's
she
the
still
deputy
considered the presiding officer, or is the deputy mayor become the presiding officer because she's unreachable?
It's the deputy mayor who's in town.
Yeah, I would agree. If the mayor
Okay.
is unavailable or inaccessible, the deputy mayor becomes.
So when I'm on a beach in Hawaii,
Belize,
on an extended,
Offered to send you to Belize. All expenses paid.
All expenses paid. I'm there. Okay, any other questions? I don't see any lights. Okay, moving on. 4.1.3.
That's what we just, that's,
I had one thought on this that I just wanted to throw out there, and it was one of the changes that I saw, and I think it might have been in Bellevue's, is that one of the things that they allow is they only allow for things that happened between when the agenda was published to when the meeting happened. That is the stuff that can be added, so you can't add something, say, something that happened 2 weeks ago that, you just want to put on this agenda just because you want it on this agenda. It has to be something that happened during that period of time that didn't make the agenda that you can add on. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's certainly up to the council's discretion if you want to add a provision like that. It seemed to make sense in some respects.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
I'm fine with the language the way it is, or with the addition of what the mayor has added. I think either way is fine.
Okay, and then I have got Councilmember Gamlin.
Yeah, I'm good on 4.1.3 as the option is currently written.
Okay, Councilmember Ross.
I'm good as written.
Okay, Councilmember Treen.
I'll concur with that.
Okay,
I'll concur with that.
okay, looks like we're good as written. Okay, let's see. Next is 2.7. Okay, I have Councilmember Gamblin, followed by Councilmember Stewart.
I'm off.
Oh, followed Councilmember Stewart.
It would be great if we could get just some guidance. I think, again, this is already an RCW, and we had some discussion about it before. I guess I'm still a little murky that I'm all for having a rule, but I think that any rule we have needs to have a process to make it enforceable, and it's unclear to me what that process would be to do this. And so I don't know, Mike, if you have any additional clarity you could provide in terms of how, because it sounds like you or your staff would not be able to assist in something like this. Is that correct?
Just so we're clear, we would not be able to assist in pursuing affirmatively a violation against a council member because we have an attorney-client relationship with council members. We certainly could assist and even take the lead on trying to put together an ordinance that you could adopt to develop an adjudicative process to pursue these violations. I'm not recommending that, but we could help with that. The cases I've been involved with over the past, and they aren't many, but the cases I've been involved with have been brought by citizens or residents alleging a violation of the OPMA. That happens because, certainly in some cases, the citizens firmly believe that there is a violation, and also the Act provides for an award of attorney's fees if the plaintiff prevails on that, as well as the imposition of the personal liability, the fine against the offending council member. There was also one case we defended where a sitting council member sued his fellow council members.
So again, I'm not opposed. I mean, it's already a rule because it's the state law. So I'm not sure what the addition of this rule would provide, given that we don't have a process for that. So I guess I kind of open that up to others to to ask that question of why would we add this if we don't have a way to enforce it per se. And if that's something we want to pursue, I think we should do that instead.
Okay, I have Councilmember Ross, followed by Deputy Mayor, and then Councilmember Gamlin.
Yeah, I don't think the intent here, after a conversation last meeting, was to enforce or prosecute any of us. It's merely to remind us this important rule. And it's in front of us in our council rules, so it reminds us of the importance of this RCW. So for that reason, I'd keep it in for that reason.
Deputy Mayor?
Councilmember Ross, take the words right out of my mouth.
Councilmember Gamlin, followed by Councilmember Trine.
Yeah, I'm good with 2.7 the way it's currently written.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Ross. That was well stated. It's just a reminder. It is the law. It's already a rule. So to have it in there, it's no problem.
Okay, any other comments on it? Okay, it's already the law and it says May, so I'm fine with it. Councilmember Ritchie, did you have any comment?
I'm good on this one. Thank you.
Okay. All right, on to 3.4.4. Okay, this one had an addition, that was added. And that was if an electronic device must be used at the dais, the council member shall explain the need for its use to the council and public. Is everybody still good with that?
Yep.
And the council member Gamlin?
Yeah, I think we should, 3.4.4 is good as written right now.
Okay. Any other comments? Perfect. Moving on to 7.3.1, voting on external committees. Councilmember Gamlin? Okay. Anybody else have, I have a few comments. Anybody else have comments?
Yeah.
Okay, so Councilmember Trine, followed by Deputy Mayor.
So voting on external committees is the one we're talking about now,
Correct.
7.31. Okay, I have a little bit of a challenge. I think it's unnecessary. And the reason why is the council, we as a council select who are going to be on these external committees, which means then that they are going in and representing us. And I know just in the 2 meetings I went at EF&R, Eastside Fire and Rescue, maybe I'm stealing your thunder here, Madam Mayor, but there are meetings where it's once a month, and if it's at the end of the month or the 3rd week of the month, and they want me to vote on something in that particular committee or that meeting, then I need to make my voice known, and I'm not going to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't vote. I haven't talked to my council about that, and then I come back to the council a week later, get everyone's opinion on it, and then wait another 3 weeks to go to that committee meeting, and they've already moved on. So if we don't, I think it's smart that I think it's in our rules already that you report back on the committee that you're on, and if we don't like the way if you don't like the way I'm voting on a committee and it doesn't represent the city, then you kick me off that committee. You move somebody in there who would represent the council. So in my opinion is that then this voting on external committees is unnecessary, because I think even in here, it's like they're exempting some already. So if you're going to exempt some committees but not others, now it's really unnecessary, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart?
Well, one, just to clarify the exemption. So for some of the committees where we are representing Sound Cities, where we had to basically request to be on that, and we had to be nominated and voted on by Sound Cities Association to be on that committee, we actually aren't representing the city. We are representing Sound Cities, and that's why that's different. For all of these other committees, I really think it is important that we bring the content, and we should have the information ahead of the meeting so that we can bring it. And even if we can't, Deputy Mayor does a great job if something comes in late, where you can send it out to the council. We can use the city manager or the city attorney should we need to gather feedback so we don't violate any kind of meeting things, where we can say, you know, this is happening, this is what's going to happen. If anybody, you know, if we have to do something special, let's find that out, because some of these decisions can have big impacts, and I think we need to have those conversations as a council before those votes are taken. Often they have financial impacts, right? They deal, you know, even just going to RIA 8, we approve budgets, which obligates the city to a financial obligation. Those are things that should be brought back and discussed as a council before a vote is taken. So I do think that having this requirement is important, and if we need to put a little pressure on the committees that we're on to get some of that information to align better with our meetings, then we can do that. And there are the rare occasion when it doesn't, and we're smart people and we figure out how to get the information we need around that. So,
Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Ross.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Stewart said it quite eloquently in her last statement there, and I had some of the exact same examples, is that there are nuances between external committees, and I think the ones that we're really focused on here are things like RIA 8 and EFR and the Kokanee Working Group, which I don't even know if they take votes there or not, and PIC. And EFR passes a budget which has massive implications to the city of Sammamish. It is I think our number one line item in our budget. So it is imperative that we have our voting members getting consensus from the council to take back to these committees to vote on behalf of the council. EFR puts out their agenda well in advance. Their meeting is the second Thursday of the week. We have a meeting 2 days in advance of that, and the agenda is out well in advance of that. So there's plenty of time for review of that and discussion at the council meeting prior to action being taken. Same thing for PIC. PIC is the second Wednesday of the month. The packet is put out well in advance so that I can, or whoever is the PIC member, can get that out to the council and collect feedback to take back for discussion and vote at those meetings. So I'm fully in favor of this, and I do like the addition at the bottom there.
Okay, I'm going to take a turn before we start here, but I'm going to correct both Councilmember Stewart and Deputy Mayor on Eastside Fire and Rescue. And that is that the meeting that everybody votes on is on the 4th of the month. It's the 4th week of the month. The second meeting, the second week of the month, that is FAC. And that meeting, those items don't take place sometimes for 2 or 3 months after. Will you see that on an agenda that is voted on the last meeting of the month? What happens here, and Christy, I know Chief tried to explain this to you. What happens is that we meet that third Tuesday. We will get the agenda and the packet on the third Thursday. And we will then meet for FAC, or for our board meeting the following week, the 4th week. We don't have that. We don't have a meeting the 4th week. So it is not, you know, it's one thing, we will have the information for the budget. That information and the big votes we have because he always gives us, you know, a couple of months to get that out, and we do. However, for what color the folder is going to be and everything else, the way this reads, that means that Sammamish members will be sitting out of many votes because of the fact of the way that this is written. And I think that that would be a very big disservice to our city. Okay, then Councilmember Ross, my phone's, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you said that well, Mayor Moran, and I should add, EFER's another example. Just this last EFER meeting, we had a walk-on agenda item. There is absolutely no way to pull or see what the council thinks about that vote. And it was an important vote. So we had to make a judgment at that point in time. So if anything, I would add the language whenever possible. And that may be combining the good points raised by Deputy Mayor Malchow and Councilmember Stewart, balancing the concerns that Mayor Moran and I are expressing.
Anybody who didn't speak first round that wants to speak before we go to round two? Okay, starting round two, Deputy Mayor.
Did we lose her?
Deputy Mayor?
Uh-oh.
There we go. Sorry, I had it on mute. Just a correction, because I'm on East Fire's website right now. The EFER board meetings are the second Thursday of the month, not the fourth, which means we have a council meeting 2 days preceding the EFER meeting in order to discuss the agenda items. And the EFER agenda comes out in advance of our Tuesday meeting. So there is sufficient time for us to review things like the budget, which is voted on in October by EFER. Those are things we have got to discuss before we have, our voting members go out and vote on these things. There are exceptions. I acknowledge that. I think Councilmember Ross brings up a good point. Fortunately, the walk-on item was something we had already discussed as a council to that end. But I realize that there are extenuating circumstances to which you may very well have to use your best discretion, or you may have to, because it has been done before at PIC, where something comes up and you're like, we have not discussed this as a council and cannot vote on it and abstain. And that would be something big, but there are extenuating circumstances where I do agree that we may have to use our best judgment. But EFER on a regular basis is the second Thursday of the month.
I guess that we don't have to go next week. Okay, any other comments?
Maybe I can propose something.
Councilmember?
So maybe to try to bring everyone together, how about if we add to it, that language that says whenever, or that says, with extenuating circumstances. So if something comes up where it cannot be discussed with council and a vote is absolutely necessary, we can add that in so that we make it that the rule is we bring it to council. And if something comes up that we can't do that for, then we're not violating the rules, but we're making sure that all the other information's coming. So maybe that's a compromise we can make.
Councilmember Gamblin?
Yeah, so it seems a compromise here is called for. The needs to keep the council informed on what's happening obviously is very important, but the need to act when necessary is also. So some type of modification where we'll try to keep informed, but when needed or necessary, they will be able to vote. I would support something like that.
So, Mike, can you think of something that perhaps covers, to cover the city so we couldn't vote on something that had great financial or major impact to the city, that without having council input?
So basically limiting that second paragraph there, members may not vote on such action items without first receiving direction from a majority of the council, limiting that to just the kind of the big financial decisions and others. Is that we could modify it to something like where the meeting schedule allows, council members will bring these items forward for discussion. Where the timing just doesn't work, the member of that committee will come back and report out on basically the vote that they made. We could do something like that, where if there's not time, then they come back after the vote has been made and inform the council.
Let's go Councilmember Stewart, Councilmember Ross.
Yeah, so I was thinking more leave the language as is and simply add a clause that states, when not feasible due to timing or urgency at a committee meeting, at which time the council member may vote and bring that information back to the full council. So it still is very much the exception, not the rule.
Okay, so read it to me again.
When not feasible due to timing or urgency.
Okay, so basically, so if we just forward all the minutes, you guys are going to let us know if you guys don't want us to vote on something.
The package, you mean?
Yeah, because you guys get
The
that.
agenda.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to see how that works.
So for the, because you're saying you only, is there no way for EFR to provide the packet like 3 days earlier so that we can
They
discuss
provide
it?
it when they provide it. I mean, that's what they
Sometimes
said.
very.
I know.
I guess the only thing you can possibly do is send the agenda packet. Maybe a best practice is to recommend the city's position from our perspective and get any pushback on or before the meeting. I mean, I think it's all about trying to be all-inclusive and unified council majority position for these important votes. So but
I
again,
think we're paying the price for somebody else's bad behavior on this, so. It looks like we have Deputy Mayor has a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say I liked the language that Councilmember Stewart provided. And then while I don't profess to know how the timing of when EFR sends their packets out in February, they sent it out on the 6th for a meeting that occurred on the 13th. And PIC sends theirs out, and I may misspeak on this, but I believe it's the Friday before our Wednesday meeting.
Yeah, that's because what's her name was going out of town. Yeah, that's not usually the case. There was a vacation on there.
let's see. I think it's as simple as any agenda item for action received from a committee must be presented at the next council meeting, if any. This is going to get real.
So are we
Alright,
good
so-
with sort of that exception? So it gives you the leeway you need?
I don't know how this is going to work with this committee at all, so I don't know, we're going to have to
It's a
sit and.
difficult one.
EFR is just going to be a tough one.
I think you're good at least for March and April, because it looks like they've scheduled it for the 12th and the 9th for March and April, so you're in good shape there.
I think I go back to,
It's whenever possible.
yeah.
It's
well,
as
yeah,
simple as that,
that's it.
whenever possible.
Whenever possible, I know.
Just add.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, because we have to anticipate the unanticipated, right? So we don't want to write something specifically for a specific meeting.
Right.
There's going to be other committees and other meetings that we
Right.
can't
That'll
anticipate.
pop up.
I agree.
So we need
I agree.
a catch-all phrase.
I would recommend adding whenever possible.
When feasible, due to timing or
Yeah.
urgency.
Feasible,
When
whenever
not feasible
possible.
due to timing or urgency.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Councilmember Stewart nailed it.
All right, so Councilmember Stewart, you want to read that to?
Yes. So I think it was add a clause that states that council members may vote when not feasible due to timing or urgency of an issue. But again, as a practice, we'll still send it out to everyone so that everyone's
Yeah,
aware.
We'll just forward the packet and
Yep.
people can comment.
Probably even have them just add the council so that you don't even have to forward.
That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so any other comments? All right. I think that should take care of it.
All right.
Deputy Mayor, did you have any comments? Does that work for you?
Yep, that works for me.
Works for her? I guess you're good.
And I move that we adopt the council rules as amended.
Wait a minute.
Our updated recommendation after hearing this discussion tonight would be for staff to go back and propose the language for consent on March 3rd instead of adopting the resolution tonight.
Okay. And you know what? And maybe I would recommend that you check in with Chief Clark for language that might help with that, that last one.
Certainly.
Okay, excellent. All right, so moving on then, we go to. Okay, moving on, we go to Youth Mental Wellness Funding Association. So, okay, so this, again, we have got Mr. Sugg.
Good evening. So last week, the council held a joint meeting with the Human Services Commission, during which the commission presented their recommendation for how to allocate the $150,000 in youth mental wellness funding that was allocated by the council during the 2020 budget. At that meeting, council wanted more time to review the recommendations, so the decision was postponed until tonight. The commission's recommendation letter is included in your packet materials. And so tonight, staff are looking for council's direction regarding how to allocate the funding. Thank you.
Okay, council, looking at this came to us last week. Oh, sorry, I lost my page again. Councilmember Stewart.
All right. I would like to move that we adopt the proposal from the Human Services Commission.
Okay, we have a first and a second on the floor. Discussion?
I guess since I made the motion, I think the Human Services Commission did a great job at our last meeting, letting us know what their criteria was that they laid out, how they kind of went about doing it, looking at trying to tackle both the acute issue as well as throwing in that ounce of prevention, which can hopefully help reduce the amount of acute need that we'll have going forward and to address the needs of the community. So I think this is a great first step. I think I heard the commission agree that they would work towards trying to measure any gaps that may still exist between what we're going to be providing and what may still be needed, and they'll work to measure that and report back to us so we can understand if we need to make adjustments when we get to the mid-buy and what we'll be needing going forward. So I think this is a great step in the right direction, and we'll hopefully just continue to get better. And to quote one of my coworkers from Microsoft, I love it. He says, "We always reserve the right to be smarter tomorrow." So.
Excellent. Any other discussion?
Yes.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Yes. Well, I appreciate the incredible deep dive that the Health and Human Services Commission has done on this. I still go back to where I was last week, where the reason the council allocated the $150,000 in addition to our already budgeted dollars for grants for the Health and Human Services Commission outside of the typical biennial budget was in reaction to what we had going on in our community, and we felt an urgent need to deal and address an urgent crisis. what we have in the recommendation, I think, in part captures that, but I am concerned that the third recommendation for the IAWW is not really capturing the urgent need by providing specialists. So I looked at their, the breakdown of theirs, and 16% of their ask from Sammamish is slated for specialists, and just 8.7% of their total $57,000 budget is for those services specifically, which would be a specialist being a counselor to be able to talk to youth. So I think the IAWW proposal would be better placed during our typical budget cycle because it does serve a need in the community, but it's not the urgent need that I think we set aside that $150,000 for. So I am going to go back to my amendment from last week, which is $130,895 for 2 FTEs at CrossPaths and $24,821 for a 0.5 FTE at Crisis Connection. That total is over the $150,000 that we allocated by about $5,700, but I think getting the counselors in is what our community needs, and so that is my amendment.
Councilmember Ross. Do I hear a second to the amendment on the floor? Not hearing a second. More discussion. Moving on to Councilmember Ross.
I think Councilmember Stewart laid the framework pretty well. We really are dealing with a youth mental health crisis. And when you look at the proposal, we have a targeted group, and I look at the mission is to connect, serve, and empower the Indian community, which I'm concerned that the rest of the community won't feel welcome being served by this 20% of our budget. And also, when I look at the program, 18,000 is for the program manager. They have in place, they want to start paying part of that fee, I presume. The facility rental is 5,000. Advertising and supplies, 2,000. That gets you to 25,000 of indirect cost. 83% of their request is not going to youth mental health, supporting the crisis that we defined. So I'm concerned that this is actually in the wrong category. I think when we go through our normal budget, we had a special allocation of $150,000 for youth mental crisis, and there's not a huge track record visible or demonstrated that we're reaching enough kids in Sammamish with this amount of money. So I would like to invite in the RFP for grants in the normal cycle for cultural diversity, and I think this organization is an outstanding candidate for an allocation for cultural diversity. But we need to give other cultures in Sammamish an opportunity to bid and have an opportunity to also get grant money from the city to help support their efforts. There's a lot. This is a great organization that is largely composed of high-achieving youth and in their programs. And so I'm high on the organization, but I think they're misclassed in the wrong category. So with that said, I really am concerned about us getting money to the crisis. And so I would actually offer a different amendment. I would offer an amendment that we approve $86,302 for CrossPath, yes, and Friends of Youth, direct service and experience with the youth mental health and drug rehabilitation. Crisis Connection, I recommend taking the recommendation of the commission of $33,698, and that the final $30,000 we set aside for now with a date certain. I think the first recommend the first or second meeting we can decide to approve the final $30,000. And I guess I'd like to, before we set that date, understand the Human Services Commission's schedule when they meet next, because I certainly like them involved to give us a recommendation. Did an outstanding job recommending where we are, and I just have a little concern about getting money focused directly on the crisis, which was the order of this 150,000. I think the first 120,000 I outlined does that. So I offer that as an amendment.
I'll second that.
Could you clarify that amendment? So are you sending the final 30,000 back to Human Services for requests for some type of acute recommendation for acute crisis management?
Mike, when's the next scheduled Human Services Commission?
They meet the second Wednesday of every month.
Okay,
and
second Wednesday.
The March meeting, they were planning to cancel that one, but pending further discussion with them, we could possibly not cancel it and actually hold the meeting. Right, they have a joint meeting that same month with all their peer Human Services Commissions, so we decided to cancel the regular meeting, but it is still an option to hold that on March 12th, I believe.
March 12th.
11th or 12th.
And then what's...
March 11th.
March 11th, and that's Wednesday. And so that'd be the 17th would be the next council meeting, March 17th.
But I think the question still is, what are you asking them to do?
Well, I guess the recommendation of 120,000 approved tonight, so we get money helping the problem immediately, right away, so we don't hold it up with any further deliberation. The last 30,000, we will decide. So why don't I simplify the motion, and then we'll discuss separately how to address the 30,000. How's that sound? So my motion then is simplified to say I motion that we approve CrossPath, yes, and Friends of Youth for $86,302, Crisis Connection for $33,698, for a total $120,000 allocation.
I'll second that amendment again.
Okay, discussion on the amendment. I have got Councilmember Ross. Did you want to say anything more? Councilmember Gamblin?
So I agree with Councilmember Ross and also Councilmember Malchow that the intent of this $150,000 was to be for crisis and acute. And so I would support the amendment from Councilmember Ross.
Councilmember Stewart?
So the discussion last year was we had a crisis, and again, I just want to remind everyone that Human Services literally jumped into action and reached out to the community and came back to us with a proposal to bring in 2 duly certified counselors at, I think it was $175,000. The council voted that down and said, no, go back. You have $150,000, go back and look broader. I appreciate that we want to deal with the acute. I voted for that first one, just, because I did think we had an acute issue. I think we definitely need to move forward. I just don't know why we would be honestly debating over $30,000 when kids' lives are at stake. And if a preventative measure for $30,000 saves one child, correct me here if I'm wrong, but isn't it 18% of our 12th graders are considering suicide right now? 17%, sorry. So 17% of our 12th graders in the city of Sammamish, this isn't a statistic about the state or King County, this is a statistic about the students in Sammamish, are considering that. So I just feel like my understanding from the Human Services Commission, and I don't know if we can get someone to come up or if Mike or Rita could address it, but my understanding is that this organization does have a track record of doing these group sessions where you get kids to come in and talk with each other about the issues that they're dealing with, whether it be peer pressure issues or the issues of dealing with a sort of a multicultural environment where they have to be these American kids at school and they have to deal with a different culture at home. And sometimes those pressures and the things that are being demanded of them are mutually exclusive, and it creates special challenges, and that these groups offer the kids a place to go and talk to each other about it in a safe environment with adults who can help and mediate those conversations. Again, I just think $30,000 is a small price to pay if we save even one child. So I'm not sure why we're having so much discussion and pain over this.
So in response to your question, yes, their focus on mental health is not just on this proposal. They have been doing it the whole of 2019. They have monthly and quarterly meetings, and they make sure they have culturally sort of sensitive counselors and therapists there. So the premise of this application was they would have people come as a drop-in and then connect and then have the counselors and therapists there.
Okay, we are still on round one. So Councilmember Ritchie.
Thank you. I support the allocations as they are stated in the recommendation. I think more often than not, at least in my experience on this council, we are asking our commissions and our boards, in this case Human Services, to do a deep dive. They come back to us with well-reasoned, common sense, well-argued direction. And what we've asked them to do, they have done. And I think we shouldn't be second-guessing them at this point. I agree that there are issues that we can do as we move forward. I agree that there are things we can continue to do. But I think that the allocations that are being asked for here have really strong backing. The Human Services Commission has done what we asked them to do. I think we need to support them in the decision that they made and the rationale that they came to support these services in our community. So I support the commission recommendation as is and not the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to finish up with mine on the first round. I also support it as written by the commission or with the committee. I think you guys did an outstanding job. And I think that there are things that I liked that weren't funded, but we asked you to do a job. I respect the fact that we have a lot of expertise on that committee that sat down and went through these and spent a lot of time on them and put together a well-rounded set of things to bring to the council. And so, and I think that you did exactly what we asked you to do, and to start picking apart and pulling little things out may leave a hole in what you did, is what I fear. Because our job is to make sure that what you brought to us was a ball, and if we start taking out a little piece of that pie, I'm afraid that we're going to leave a hole in the coverage, basically. So I thank you for the job that you did, and I will be supporting it as it's written. Now we're on to round two.
Call for the question. Let's vote.
Okay.
Vote on the amendment.
Voting for any other comments on the amendment? Okay.
I'll hold my comment till after.
Well, I think she was on the second one. Did you? Okay, Deputy Mayor.
It's okay. I'll hold my comment.
Okay. Okay, voting on the amendment. Would you please repeat your amendment?
I support allocating the first two agencies listed for a total of $120,000. Approve that amount right now.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
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 4-3.
It does not pass.
The original motion.
Down to the original motion.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So this is probably a question for staff. I have some confusion in the application that we're debating here on this $30,000, it says they already have a youth program director, that they have 7 years of experience in the role, and that they are already in the position. So I am confused why we are being asked to spend $18,000 for this program director's salary if they're already employed. Can you help me understand that?
Hi, this is Rita Bard. So it's my understanding that when they come to Sammamish, this will be additional programming. So I can deep dive and get some more explanation. But yes, part of the youth director's salary would be dependent on this grant.
So, but again, my question is the same. They say they already have a program director. It says in their application on page 3, they have a youth program director already in the position.
Right.
So are we?
So this is additional. This is a
program director. Are they hiring a new program director? That's where my confusion is.
No, so it's my understanding that this youth program director would be providing additional time. She doesn't provide time here exclusively in Sammamish, so it will be all the programming that will be happening in Sammamish.
Okay.
In the same way, Crisis Connections, they have someone coming in and we're paying part of their salary as well.
Okay, so I have got lights on here, so I have got, oh, now we're down to one light. Councilmember Ross.
Yeah, this is it's a very close call. My amendment that was voted down versus the package. I support the package even though I proposed the amendment, and the reason for that is I think it's important to support the Community for Human Services funding. So for that reason, I'm going to support it as written. And as Tom, the chairman of the Human Services Commission says, trust me, you'll be happy with it. So I'm going to trust you. I'm going to be happy with it. And sometimes you have to try out something to see results. And I think if this works out, we can expand it to other cultures in the community. I think this may be a good test drive. So there's a lot of good in this. And I'm willing to take a risk on this. I just think it was in the wrong bucket. I'm high on the organization, as I said before, but there is some merit to prevention, and maybe if there's more opportunities for youth to find engagement with other youth, maybe that is a big deal, and we'll find out from the results. So for those reasons, again, it's a very, very, very tough decision balancing the direct appropriations of monies for a crisis. So I'll support it for those reasons.
Call the question.
Okay, I've got a call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 7-0. Okay, next up is our work plan, City Council work plan for 2020 work plan.
All right, good evening once again. This is a follow-up item from the council's retreat in January. At the retreat, staff presented a list of potential council-focused work plan items organized into 8 focus areas, you may recall. And in your packet tonight, we've taken that list of potential items and scheduled it out across the council meetings for this year. We have a detailed spreadsheet that shows the exercise that staff went through to schedule those items, and we also have a visual copy that's a little bit more easy to digest. I'm going to ask Lita to pull up the screen here. Yes. Following the packet publication, Councilmember Ross requested that the legally mandated items be highlighted, which is shown in the spreadsheets that were passed out to the council, as well as shown on the screen here. As you can tell, this is a very full work plan for 2020 when looking at both the critical items and the discretionary items all scheduled out. At the bottom, you'll see 5 items that are highlighted in purple, which I'm scrolling to now. The first one is for the city manager recruitment. We don't know the dates of that recruitment until we get into it. It will likely require an additional council meeting date outside of the normal schedule, as we did during the last recruitment. The other 4 items are community development related to the town center, and those will require some rearrangement of the work plan if we want to pursue them this year. We are not looking for the council to do the rearranging tonight, but if you can tell staff which items you want to add, we can come back to you with an updated work plan with those items moved around as needed. And I believe we have a few departmental staff here to help answer any questions about any particular items if they come up. But with that, I will turn it over for any discussion or comments.
Okay, I know we had some council members who had some questions and some comments. And so I'm going to start, Council Member Stewart.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I do like the visual. I'm sure it's a lot to maintain, but thank you for putting this together. A couple of questions. What is community visioning? I'm not sure I know exactly what that is.
So that was the item that was discussed at the retreat regarding developing a new vision. So new vision for our comp plan and the process that goes into that as far as, doing the public outreach and soliciting feedback from the community, the council. And
does that mean a new vision statement, or like what's the outcome of that?
My understanding was that there would be a new vision statement at the end of that. It would be updating what we currently have in our comprehensive plan.
All right. L11, the urban growth capacity study, that's the new buildable lands report, correct? Isn't that the new terminology for that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The Title 16 building code update, I just was curious what specifically is that? Is that what we've been calling sort of the phase 2? No, that's something different? Okay. I see David making his way to the front of the room. So sorry, David. You probably thought you were going to get out not have to come up here. My bad.
Good evening, Mayor Moran, Council, David Pyle, Community Development. So the Title 16 updates is related to the building code itself, the International Residential Code, the International Building Code, the state amendments, and any local amendments to the region. This is done periodically, and we follow national trends and state legislation on this. That then we are required to adopt locally.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And would that also include, I know that there are some bills in the legislature right now that might increase some of the efficiencies of buildings and stuff, addressing sort of environmental sustainability. Would that be part of that kind of thing? So if there are changes at the state level, we make the appropriate adjustments at the local level, or?
In the energy codes, correct. That would be through the energy codes.
All right, great. Great. And then my only other question, do I understand this correctly? When you talk about the city manager recruitment, I'm assuming we'd be starting that right away. The to be determined is we just don't know when we'd have meetings around that until we actually kick off the process. But we'll be kicking that off, I'm assuming, as soon as possible, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then again, just to get a little bit of clarification, David probably shouldn't have walked all the way to the back of the room, where we just talk about town center projects, town center public right-of-way design standards, and town center regional stormwater. I guess I'm curious, none of these have been scheduled, and what I heard you say is that if we need to schedule these, we have to take something else off. So just the first one, which is sort of the placeholder town center projects, what does that mean? Sorry.
Yeah, so
I'm so picky, aren't I?
That's not a problem. It's a great question, actually. The first one really is what was related to the survey that went out to you all. Basically the four notches in the range of alternatives. The first alternative being basically repeal and rewrite the entire town center code and plan. The fourth notch on this side being complete a batch of code changes in order to get a little better outcome from what we'd been seeing. And dependent on what you choose within those notches, 1 through 4, would be S2, I think is what it is there. Is that an S? I can't see from this angle. The one in green.
It's actually 52, but
52.
yeah. That's the row.
Maybe I need some glasses. So what that would be, dependent on what the council chose there, would inform us as to what we would need to do with the items that follow.
Understood. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
The idea being that if you feel that a policy gap analysis is needed, option 3, option 2, in that range, that would also require likely some changes to the right-of-way design standards, regional stormwater discussion, those items.
Got it. Okay. But these things that aren't scheduled aren't things that are going to hold up our ability to do and I know that this isn't necessarily the case, but assuming we didn't make any changes to policy or code, there's still work, isn't there, that needs to be done around like the regional stormwater, correct?
That depends on whether the council wanted to take up a public program related to regional stormwater.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Ross?
Does this work plan schedule assume that we only have 3 meetings a month?
Yes, 3 meetings per month, no August meetings during the recess, and the last December meeting canceled are the assumptions.
Didn't assume July, huh?
That gives us buffer to add things if we need it, right?
And where's my Belize trip?
That's a Christie question.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, did you have any questions on this?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on this? I know that we have got a new interim city manager starting tomorrow, so I would like to, I know everybody sent the questions into staff today. I would recommend everybody look through this, send their questions into staff, and I would like to move this forward to a date certain of March 17th.
Second.
So I think you mean to table until.
Yeah. Okay. Is that all right with everybody? Do we have to take a vote on that?
You have a second? Yeah.
Okay, second. All right, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? 7-0, excellent. Okay, now we're going to go back and pick up 3 and 5. Okay, let's do the interlocal. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I had some questions and just didn't have a chance to get those answered today. So the first question is where it says administration of agreement. And it says that the administrative boards shall consist of the fire chief and the city manager. I was curious what the board would do, and in the current situation, the whole point of this is to kind of create a boundary between the city manager and this role. So how would we do that in the current situation? How would that?
The provision for an administrative board or a description, well, let me back up a further step. This is entitled Emergency Management Services Agreement, but since it's an agreement between two public agencies, it's an interlocal agreement under RCW 3934. One of the requirements in 3934 is that an interlocal agreement describe the manner of administration or whether there'll be a separate administrative board established. So this is essentially boilerplate. You'll see it, the board only meets once a year, and the agreement further specifies that the emergency services manager is a District 10 employee.
So it's boilerplate. So then what does this mean? What does this board do? What's the point?
It shall meet no less than one time per year to discuss the performance of the obligations of the district and Sammamish pursuant to this agreement.
Discuss the work plan.
Organizational.
All right. Okay. The other question I had was on section 3.3, fulfill the role as the emergency coordination center manager during activations. Do we need more specificity as to what that means? Because again, if, in my mind, and if our agreement with the YMCA is any indication, we might be better off being more specific as opposed to less specific, so there's no questions later. Do we need to make that more detailed so that there is no concern or question down the road as to whether or not people feel that they are or aren't meeting the obligations?
That's entirely up to the council, of course. I mean, I think the reference there is also tied into Section 4 of the agreement that requires Sammamish to provide an emergency coordination center for the district. And so the functions of the emergency coordination center would be as set forth in the emergency operations plans of the district and the city.
So kind of going on that, 3.7, which is develop, manage, and oversee the City of Sammamish Emergency Planning Committee. What is this committee? What does it oversee? What are the expectations from this committee? Does it already exist? Is it already happening? So these are just, again,
What item are you on?
it's section 3.7 in the agreement. Does anyone know what those are?
Manage and oversee the City of Sammamish Emergency Planning Committee. I think that's his job currently. I think, yeah. I think
Who's
that's
the committee? It's going to oversee a committee. What's the committee? Who's on it?
Well, I think currently there isn't a committee. I think currently there is to develop a committee, manage and oversee the City of Sammamish Emergency.
Develop it, yeah.
I think that's what we need to get clear on, right? Again, I'm not questioning it as much as I'm just saying it seems unclear, and it probably needs to be clarified before we. So does anybody know? Doesn't.
I think the mayor's correct. I don't believe that the Sammamish Emergency Planning Committee now exists. I think under this agreement, the Emergency Services Coordinator will be developing and managing and overseeing it.
Yes, that's part of, I think that's part of his work plan.
Right. Sammamish sets the work plan, and EFR, District 10.
So if we're setting the work plan and nobody knows what this committee would be for, that seems a little concerning to me.
Chief, out of fairness, Chief did ask if he needed to be here tonight, but at that point in time, I had nobody say they had any questions at all, so I had no idea.
All right. There was also a reference to training. So my other question is, for all the training listed, do we know how frequent this training needs to be? Can we state that it's no less than a certain amount in the agreement? Because there's a thing saying that, that they'll administer training and things like that. And I think, again, just to be clear, we should call out
I agree.
what that expectation is.
Okay, what number are you on?
Now that one, I'm sorry, I didn't document what section that
3.8.
was.
3.8
3.8,
describes
thank
the
you.
training.
In section 6.1, there's it talking about in the first 6 months, there would be a trial period. I spoke with Mike, and he said that that's pretty standard, and that makes sense. I guess my question because we have a special circumstance is that if for some reason this were to be requested to be terminated by Eastside Fire and Rescue or District 10, I feel like we need to have a backup plan because that would put us back into the situation where we're in violation of our own policy. So I don't know if that's something, I guess it's probably not something we would address in this agreement, but we need to probably address that. And then in 6.4, it says agreement except disputes handled per section 7.5, but there is no section 7.5.
Yeah, that should probably be a reference to section 11.1.
Good catch.
And then
Or section just 11, section
11, okay. The other one is section 12.8, where it says that Sammamish will provide a workstation, computer with access, et cetera. The question I have is if we're already paying for a fully loaded employee, doesn't that already include things like a computer? So it's one thing to provide a desk, but if we're also going to provide hardware, I think that's already included in a fully loaded employee cost.
No. No, it's purely fully loaded compensation, this additional cost. So it's been computed separately.
I guess it's curious to me that we would provide hardware to somebody else's employee at just extra cost.
But I think the notion there was, so 7.1 says that the payment to the district, quote, reflects the fully burdened salary of the coordinator. And that was intentional because the agreement also provides that the emergency services manager will still be at a workstation here in the city. So that's the reference to fully burdened salary was intentional.
Okay, and then there's still the question of what is that salary and benefits number?
Yeah, so Lisa was able to get in contact with the District 10 finance officer today. The finance officer is at a conference until Monday, and so can't send a breakdown until Monday, but she assures us that the $177,007 figure is the fully burdened salary of a District 10 employee. But basically that means the District 10 benefits are $9,000 or $10,000 more generous than Sammamish benefits.
So how do we want to go about getting the updates to this before we?
I think she was going to send them on.
Well, but we've got the reference to section 7.5. We want to clarify the training. I still think we should clarify what this committee is and what it's supposed to do so that we don't have any questions down the road. I mean, we've learned, if we've learned nothing from the agreement with the Y, is to be specific so that we don't
So
get into
let's
situations
address them one by
later.
one and see what we're going to do. Okay, what's the first one?
So the first one was fulfilling the role as Emergency Coordination Center manager during activations.
Okay, what number
That's
is that?
section 3.3. Is it clear, is it written down somewhere what it means to fulfill the role?
Yes, because that's in the emergency manual for the city.
Okay, so can we put in a reference, say as defined in whatever, so
The
that it's
city's
clear?
emergency manual. I don't know why we need to, but
I don't think we need to.
Councilmember Gamblin?
Yeah, I move that we approve this agreement as is.
With,
I still had the,
let's go.
I thought we were going through these one by one.
Mike, do you have, rather than, these are just kind of additional word changes or additions?
Well, certainly, for example, the reference in 6.4 that Pam pointed out, that should say section 11, not section
Right.
7.
Let's make
that
We
change
can
for
make
sure.
that change.
Right.
Yeah,
For
that's-
sure.
Yeah, that's just a
And-
mutual mistake of fact.
And this one where it's the The 3.1, I guess it is, 3.3. This is, as it states in the city emergency handbook or manual. I mean, those are just additional words added in.
Well, I think we should, for that one, because I'm not positive whether it's the city's or the district's
Right.
manual.
Yeah.
And so we could provide something like fulfill the role, I'm reading 3.3 now.
Right.
Fulfill the role as the Emergency Coordination Center manager during activations pursuant to the city or district manual as applicable.
Like it.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
So
Okay, Councilmember Trine?
Okay, on that one right there, Mike, I don't even know if you need to do that even, because if there's an emergency, this is how it works, right? We have an emergency manager that when there's an activation during an emergency, who's the number one guy? It's Stevens, right? That's who we hired. That's who we're paying to do this job. He is the emergency coordinator. He takes over the command center and he manages it during activation. So what else is there to do? I mean, he knows his job. He knows what he's supposed to be doing. Add the words to the, if you want to add the words, fine. I don't see it necessary is what I'm trying to say there, not getting too emotional. 3.7, develop, manage, and oversee the City of Sammamish Emergency Planning Committee. He's got to develop it. There isn't one right now. So his job is...
Can I interject? We do have an emergency management committee. We have made up of staff and...
Right, okay, so that's where I was leading to next, is what they've set up right now is there's a committee that is been training and will be training in the future and continued ongoing training to handle emergencies, whether that's earthquake, active shooter, fire, whatever. Okay, so that's his job. That's what he does, and I imagine he's pretty good at it. I haven't done his training yet, but I believe we witnessed him certifying a whole bunch of people that he did train here just recently in a council meeting, and so he is definitely doing that. So is that 3.8? Prepare Sammamish staff and residents for emergency providing or coordinating the following training. That's what it is. By the way, the news I've gotten from the people who've taken the training and the people I've talked to are just overjoyed by how professional he is and how he's an entertaining and informative trainer. And so that's what he's doing. He's going to expand what he's doing based on 3.82, 3.83, 3.84, 3.85, 3.86. And what was the other one that you had?
Can I request that we do one at a time and see where we are? Because it's going to get lost.
Okay.
I guess my point is they're addressed.
Well, let's do one at a time and
Okay.
nod it. I
Sorry.
mean,
Okay.
otherwise we're not going to get
All right, is there anybody else who has got comments outside of do them one at a time? And I know, Deputy Mayor, you had a comment?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
well, we've got a motion on the floor. Councilmember
Yeah.
Gamblin made
Was it seconded?
No.
I didn't think so either. So I'd like to make a motion then that we adopt the Emergency Management Service ILA with the change of 3.3 to state pursuant to the city or district manual as applicable, and in section 6.4 that we alter the reference from 7.5 to 11.
Second.
And just so I'm clear, Council, are you looking at, in section 7.1, are you looking at the one that has the basic fee of $177,007?
No. I said 6.4 that we removed
6.4.
6.4 that we removed the reference to 7.5 and change it to section 11.
Oh, I'm sorry, Christy. I know I sort of jumped ahead of you because I want to make sure as council proceeds that we are voting, that we know whether you're voting on the basic fee of $177,007 or $166,097. I think the recommendation.
So 177, what is in the current document, because Lisa had emailed us earlier today. So, yes, as stated.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion. And I have got Councilmember Ritchie.
Thank you. Regarding the motion, my question is, and maybe I just didn't read this or couldn't find it when I read through it, so if it's an easy find, just point out the number. In terms of staff filing a complaint or discipline or performance reviews, who is handling that part of this? I mean, I don't where the guy's desk is and having them on site. I mean, those are all separate issues, I understand, but just in terms of the reporting process or reporting procedure, if there are performance issues or discipline or anything like that, who would a city staff member or anybody report that to, and how would that be done?
He is going to be a Fire District 10 employee, so it would go to chief.
Right.
Is that called out here on the, can you just read me a number? That's what I'm looking for. I mean, it's not in the contract. I want to make sure. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It is called out in 8.3 that he shall be transferred to the district as the district's coordinator, that will be a district employee. The specific, here's how you make a complaint isn't called out, but you wouldn't be able to make an employee complaint to the Sammamish city manager about a non-city of Sammamish employee.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously I don't expect that to happen. I just want to make sure we're very clear about the reporting procedure is that he is reporting to Fire District 10, and that is who he is managed by. And just, again, I know we've walked around this for quite a while, and I want to make sure I'm being very clear. Mike, in terms of legality here, are we clear that he is reporting to somebody outside of the city of Sammamish in this document?
Yes, recital 3 says that the district has agreed to become the employer of the coordinator, and then that's a recital, a statement of intent, but 8.3 is the operative enforceable term that he is now a district employee during the term of this agreement.
And if the contract or the agreement is terminated for whatever reason, we will cross that bridge when we come to it. Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah, well, I think that's fair to say. I mean, paragraph 6, section 6 talks about termination, but it's got some different options. You know, one within the probationary period of 6 months and a different option after the probationary period. I think everyone expects that the staff person will pass the probationary period because he's not exactly new to the job here.
Understood.
But that'll be up to the district, not to the city.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Stewart.
So I just want to point out to the council that this agreement, while we're doing it because we have specific people in specific positions, that this agreement will potentially outlast specific people, including us. And so my desire to get more specific is not personal and should not be taken that way. My desire to be specific is because it is our job to make sure that we are clear in all of the agreements that we make with any other organization as to what's expected, and that we make sure we're getting what we're asking for and what we're paying for, and not because we feel like we're going to be cheated, but in any agreement, the more clear we can be, the less likely we are to have friction down the road, right? Because everybody's expectations are already in the document, and we don't have to have that, well, I thought it meant this and you thought it meant that. So while everybody's getting all personal about it, this isn't personal. This is business, and we need to be making sure we're doing our due diligence and making sure that this agreement is clear and we don't leave things up that are ambiguous and can create some sort of friction with an organization that we don't currently have any friction with.
Yes, I agree.
So my recommendation is that we do in fact clarify what these specific duties are a little more and have some reference to them, because saying develop, manage, and overseeing a planning committee, that could mean that I get 5 people in a room and serve cake once a month. That's not clear, that's not specific, and I'm being facetious. I know that that's not what someone's gonna do, but I think it's important, again, taking the people out of it. This is an agreement between 2 organizations. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Okay, and then I've got Councilmember Ross, and we have a motion on the floor. Council?
I don't want to overprescribe a professional. Chief Clark is one of the most respected leaders in our community. And he's going to actually enhance partnering with Mr. Stevens, the emergency services. So I don't want to overprescribe. As far as standing the test of time, Section 6.1 has a 14-day advance written notice to terminate if so desired by either party. So there is certainly, we're not stuck with this agreement. We can terminate and redo a new agreement if we may morph into a joint agreement with the other partners in EFR. We don't know. But the bottom line is I have the utmost confidence in Chief Clark working with Mr. Stevens to provide outstanding emergency services for Sammamish. So I don't want to overprescribe what prescriptive measures he must take, Mr. Clark and Andrew, because Mr. Clark is going to, Chief Clark's going to do us justice.
Okay, council, we've got a motion on the floor. Everybody has spoke. I'm going to call for the vote. Who can repeat the motion for me?
I can, since I made it. I move that we adopt the ILA with, sorry, I'm trying to scroll all the way back up to the top. Our emergency management services agreement with the change at 3.3 to state at the end of it, pursuant to city or district manual as applicable. And in section 6.4, that we remove the reference to section 7.5 and replace it with section 11.
Second, again.
Okay.
Right, second.
So the motion on the floor, do you have that, Lita? You're, okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, and it is 5-2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the
next one.
minutes.
This one's a pretty easy one. I think the two of the committees just got reversed. So I'm actually the representative for RIA 8, and I think the mayor is the alternate for that one.
For which one?
RIA 8. And then for the Kokanee Work Group, that's where I think the mayor is the representative. So it's just I think just a typo, but I just want to make sure we got that corrected.
Work group.
Yeah, you're Kokanee, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think I'm on Kokanee. I caught that too, but thought maybe I just forgot. I know I'm not RIA 8, but I was Kokanee Working Group.
So which one is it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, for the 11th?
Yep, February 11th minutes. Oh.
All right.
Okay.
Everybody check.
So yeah, I don't think I kept track of all of the.
I don't have that paper in my,
Okay.
I have it at home.
Russell, yeah. Where's the Kokanee Work Group?
So it's item 4, it's February 4th.
Yeah, that's, there it is, thank you.
Maybe that's what it was. Sorry. That must be what it was. Sorry. Yeah, but that should be RIA 8.
Oh, okay, what should it be? Where,
So you and I, so there where it's listed, see where it says the RIA 8 should be me and you. I'm the RIA 8 representative.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so that should be me and you. And then I don't know if the salmon, and then salmon recovery, I'm not sure who was
I think
salmon
that's-
recovery.
I think that was, I actually do think that was Deputy Mayor. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we
Assuming salmon recovery is the Kokanee Working Group.
Is it? No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, then the Kokanee Working Group isn't on the minute.
It's not even listed, Kokanee Work Group, because I'm on that.
I think that's the salmon recovery.
That's what no?
No.
The salmon recovery council.
Okay,
That's not
I'd have
Kokanee
to
Work
go, I'll have to look at my, but she does have the RIA 8 correct.
So maybe we should just postpone these minutes until we can get the
Yeah.
No.
committees correct and
Right.
we'll do it next time. Is that okay? So
Yeah,
I guess
any-
I have to move to table this to the next meeting.
Yeah, and I'll bring in the minutes that I wrote down, the sheet that I wrote everybody's stuff on.
Watch on camera.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
You get a second on that tabling?
Yeah, till we can
I made
put it
the
up to the video and then the notes.
So I move to table to the next meeting.
Second.
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 Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Excellent.
All right.
Super.
7-0.
Okay, so next we have got council reports. Deputy Mayor?
Excuse me,
Yeah,
can we take a break
Health
here?
and
It's
safety.
been, yeah.
We're
Okay, let's
It's been
finish
like
these.
3
then.
hours.
If we get through
Okay.
this, then we go to
Yeah, health and
executive
safety.
session, right?
Okay, we're going to finish council reports, and then we're going to do health and safety and exec. Deputy Mayor?
I don't need to read my report. It is there for you to read.
Okay. Then let's go down the dais, starting with Councilmember Trine.
Nothing.
Councilmember Gamblin. Councilmember Ross.
Nothing this day.
Okay, Councilmember Stewart.
I just had one thing, and that is that a group of our youth are having a sustainability summit this weekend on Saturday, at East Lake. So take a look, come out, help save the environment. They're awesome.
Okay, Councilmember Ritchie.
No report. Being sick is no fun. Sorry.
Okay, and no report. So with that, we will take a health and safety break and go into an executive session for 40, well, no, let's say 35 minutes.
For the purpose of
For the purpose
evaluating
of,
the-
sorry, for the, anonymous cheaters. Okay, going into executive session for the purpose of, to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101G. Okay, we are returning to our meeting this evening out of executive session. And we have got, I believe we have a motion.
Madam Mayor, I would recommend a motion along the lines of authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for interim city manager services with David Rudat at an annual base salary of $225,000, and the other terms reflected in the contract marked as Exhibit A and handed to the city clerk this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? I do. Okay, Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, I just feel the need to reiterate that, again, this isn't personal. As a council, it is our responsibility to execute these duties with the best interests of the city in mind. We as a council did not interview any other candidates. I just don't think that that is going through the appropriate due diligence, and I have several issues with the contract terms that have been outlined, and I think that we're offering a significant raise above what we offered the previous interim city manager. I think there are some other open items, and I have concerns about that, and I think that I forget which council member it was, but I couldn't agree more that one of our most important duties as the council is hiring the city manager, and therefore we shouldn't be cutting corners on the process.
Okay, I'm going to clarify that we did interview two other people, and also that the salary is the same of what we had for our last interim.
It isn't, actually. It's $25,000 more, $26,000 more.
So I don't think that's right. But anyway, okay, so motion's on the floor. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, 5-2.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
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 9:05. Hallelujah.